Okay, this is week 8 on adding new activity. What you're going to do is enter in a string, click on page 2, and it's going to go to a new page, a new activity is what they call it, and the new page is called a new activity in Kotlin, and then be able to send you back. Should be a Word document in this week's assignment. There's a link to the GitHub repo. Also an online demo. So you create a brand new project, call it week 8. Add a new activity. You're going to add a new activity called empty activity in the res folder. So I'll go ahead and do this real quick. I'll create a new one. Empty activity next. Week 8, 2021. And you can call yours just week 8. I've already done one here earlier, so then click finish. As soon as it loads up, we're going to add a new new page, which in Kotlin it's called a new activity, is what it's called. Pages are called activities. Once we do that, we'll update the Android manifest with basically what it's going to do is we're going to add this highlighted blue code in the XML, which is going to basically say that the main activity is a parent in main activity 2. So as you can see, there's two main activity sections, or two activity sections, activity and activity. The first activity here is the new page that we'll create, the new activity. The second one here is the one that's initially created when you create the app. And you'll notice in the main activity in the XML, it says there's going to be an intent filter added by default, and then also launcher by default. So all we're going to do basically is we'll highlight this blue text in XML in just a second. By clicking on this link, it'll send you to the XML file. But we'll add that XML first, or that new page, inside of the layout. So we're going to right click, go to res, layout, right click on layout, go to new activity, and we want empty activity. Leave everything just like it is, don't change anything. It should create a file name called main activity 2. It will say generate a layout file, we'll leave that like it is. Layout name, we'll leave it like it is. Everything else we'll leave like it is. Click finish. Then what we'll do is go to the manifest folder and double click on the Android manifest. And you'll notice in here right now, it added this new line 12 in here. This was already in here, but when we added the new activity, it added this new line. And we're going to have to go to the document and go to this XML page, which goes to the XML file. And we're going to highlight, only select the highlight. It's in between basically activity. So it's from the Android word down to this line here. It's basically 4 lines of code. So I'll highlight those. Again, it says it's for Android. The metadata it adds is, guess what? Main activity is the parent of this main activity 2 that we just added. So we're going to copy that, go into our Android app, and paste it in the XML. There we go. Do a save or Command S or a file save all. Next thing we're going to do is step 4. We've already done that. Edited the main now we're getting ready to do that. Edit the activity main, and we're going to add in a plain text txt send for the ID, no text, allow refactor, put in the hint enter string, and then we'll do a pack expand horizontal. We're also going to add a button below the TXT send called BTN page 2, text page 2, refactor, expand it, and then we'll also do a select all infer constraints once we're done. So I'll make my screen a little bit bigger here. Get rid of the initial hello world. And we're going to add in a plain text towards the top. We'll center it. There we go. And the name, TXT send, empty text, allow refactor, and enter string. Right. TXT send, empty, and refactor, and enter string. So we'll allow the refactor, clear the text property, and then we're going to go up here to the top here and go to pack, expand horizontally. We're also going to go to the hint area. And type in enter string. There we go. And while we're in here, it's on your instructions, but we'll center it by going to the gravity property. And we want to center horizontal. Now it'll center that string that the user enters in horizontal. Then we go to button, add a button below, right below that. You don't want it inside the little gray lines here. You want it right below it. Make sure it's centered right about there. And we want to name that one BTN page 2, page 2 for the text. We'll expand it horizontally as well and allow refactor. So BTN page 2 and text. We'll do refactor page 2. And then we'll go up here again to the pack, expand horizontally, select everything, and then we want to do infer constraints. So we've got that. Now we're going to go to main 2, the new page that we added, the new activity. We'll add text view called TXTShow. We'll put this towards the middle. We're in the middle there, and then we want to call it TXTShow for the ID. Refactor it, and we're going to go ahead and expand horizontal. We're going to make the font a little bit bigger. Excuse me. Text size to 18 SP, and again we're going to center it with a gravity. And we want it to center horizontally. There we go. Now we can get rid of the text view. Text. I'll leave that in there just to make sure it's centered right. There we go. Let's do a save all. Infer constraints. I did not do that yet. Select all to infer constraints. Now I'm going to copy some code that I've already done for main activity 1 and main activity 2. And just to be quicker, before you do that, just to confirm on your Android Studio, I would go to Android Studio Preferences to make sure in the Android notifications or the build, type it in here to find it easier for you. You want to make sure the imports are automatic. They should already be, but if they aren't, make sure under Kotlin it says add unambiguous imports on the fly. Make sure that's checked before I copy and paste. I want to make sure that's the case. You can also type these in manually if you want to, but for time I'm going to copy and paste mine. And basically what we're doing first is, I'll do it by chunks here. We're going to basically bind the two objects first, which is a button go and the TN send, which is two objects on the main page. And by doing the auto import, you notice it automatically imported those needed import statements. Okay. Next, we're going to do the button go, which is going to send the intent to main activity 2, or define the intent on main activity 2, then push it with the next line, the intent.put extra, whatever's in the text field, the text send field people put in, and then the start activity send is going to send that to the activity. Okay. Next, before we copy this section, which is a hide keyboard, I'm going to go ahead and add in the new, or the function for hide keyboard, which is this function down here. Just make sure when you highlight it, you don't highlight the very last right bracket. It's right before the last left-right bracket is where you want to paste that hide keyboard function. Then inside of the onCreate, which is this right here, we're going to put this tap on listener. That way when the user taps outside of the text box, it's going to hide the keyboard, as always. We want that before the end of the onCreate. Now just remember, on line 33 here, you'll notice when I put my cursor on line 33 at the end right bracket, it highlights the left bracket where it starts. Same here on the function keyboard. It highlights the start and finish. That way, if you ever get lost, want to know where you're at, you can just click on a left or right bracket. It'll give you the left and right bracket both, beginning and end. Cool. So I've got the main activity. I'm going to do a Command S to save, go back. And now we're going to go back to the Word document. And I believe it has us go to main activity 2. Not as much code on this one. We're just basically going to val the text show first, txt show. Then we're going to bring the intent in from the main page and load it. And we technically really don't need the hide keyboard. I'm going to bring it in, but we really don't need it because there's no input on this screen. But I'll do it just because it's there already. And the reason I put it in all my pages pretty much, that way if there's ever I want to build it later or add to it, it's there. And it doesn't hurt to have the hide keyboard. I'm just going to highlight everything down to the bottom from this fire keyboard comment down to the very last right bracket. Okay, now let's go ahead and do a build clean, build rebuild. If there's any issues, it'll make us aware of that. Okay, looks like we're okay. Now let's go ahead and do a play or a run app. Let's enter in the string. Hello everyone. Click page 2. It puts it in page 2 in the center, and you'll notice it gives us a back arrow button by default since it is the second instance of this app. And that's because it's been put in the Android Studio as the main activity. If we did not put this in, we would not have the back arrow that we have now. Okay, so I'll run it one last time. I'll stop it, run it again. There we go. There's our text we brought over. And it'll clear it each time, by the way we have it coded. Great. So, a couple things on this. When you added a new project, we went to right click at new activity, and we did empty. Then you edited the XML and added in this 4 lines of code, which basically tells Android that the parent is main activity. Added the needed text and button on the first page, the main page. On the second page where it's going to, just added a view, centered that as well, made the text a little bigger. Then in the code, we had to bind the button and text send objects, which is a text box and the button. Click event, which sends it to, well, first this line grabs the intent command method, pushes it to main activity 2. Now, intent is now actually initialized on this main page for main activity 2. Put extra, intent.put extra basically just sends that stuff to wherever you want it to go. In this case, it's sending it to main activity 2. Then this line starts the activity. Then the normal high keyboard stuff. On the main activity 2, this one pretty simple, just adding in an initialization for the TextShow, bringing in the TextShow from the intent, from the main page, the send stuff. And by the way, this has to be the same name where it says send stuff, has to match here that says send stuff. If that's not the same, it will not bring in the correct data. Shows it on the TextShow, and then the high keyboard stuff. And so that completes week 8. You're going to be adding to this for your homework. I'll be adding a few more variables, and I suggest you could add in here a couple more text views or text plain text underneath this current string, and just send maybe 3 text plain text objects on this screen. When it goes to page 2, it's going to basically show up here on there. Now you can have it in the same view that we have for the example here in the lab, or you can add 2 more text views if you want to. It's up to you, however you want to do it. And that concludes week 8. Hope that helps.